day like today. Beautiful because we're alive. Something you would like to discuss? Anything in particular? Any subject? You're most welcome. Or any questions you may have? Yes, beloved?
I have a question. When our Father puts an individual through endurance,
I'm sorry, beloved, can you talk a little louder?
when our Father puts an individual through endurance, why is it that sometimes he must walk alone?
I'm sorry, when you say when you follow what?
My Father, our Father,
Acha, God?
right,
Okay.
puts an individual through endurance. Why is, even though he is there, though he cannot be seen, the physical aspects of somebody had to actually guide or pick him up. He makes the person stand alone.
Acha. Suffer. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Why do we suffer? Why does we go through so much?
Myself.
Yes. Beloved, your question is everybody's question. In fact, that's one of the questions that most people have. And when they are not able to answer that question, they become atheists. Because the feeling is that if there's a God, then why would God create me and then let me suffer like this? Why would he create any human being and let them suffer like this? So much evil, so much pain, so much wrong in the world and in my life. And if there's a God, why isn't God protecting me and rescuing me from all of this? You see? The question is, when you turn it around, is why am I unhappy? Why isn't this world a utopia? Why isn't life hunky-dory? Why must I struggle? Why can't everything be paradise? Now, there's been many answers that have been offered to this same basic fundamental inquiry that we all have as human beings, unless you're unconscious, of course, you see. Why is there suffering? Why do we have to go through so much of it, endure so much of it? Many things, you see, beloved, can be said about it. The first thing that can be said about it is that our suffering contains our lessons. Please make a note. That very often our sufferings is the way that God in the universe tries to teach us something that we are here in this world to learn. We have all been born into this world, into this school, to get the lesson that is here for us, by which we are able to make spiritual progress and fulfill God's purpose for our life, you see. Our suffering contains those lessons. Another function of suffering, beloved, is to generate in us the experience of our own helplessness so that you have to call on God. You see, in everybody's life, there comes a time when you really realize how powerless you are to really be happy, to be at peace, to really be fulfilled. And you have been trying everything that you can think of, and you have failed. You have been trying to control your life and everything and everyone in it. And at some point, you realize you're not controlling nothing, that you're powerless, and that hurts. But without that kind of suffering, then you would never call for help. You would never call on God. And God has to be invited into your life. God cannot invade you. God is not a rapist. You must invite it into your life. You must cry for that help. And suffering makes you cry. Suffering makes you realize that you are not God. You see, beloved, suffering shuts down our playing God because we like to play God. Most of us, you see, beloved, is playing the I am God game. And we think we're in control. And we think we're calling the shots. And we think we're running the world. And we want people to act the way we want them to act. We want things to happen when we want them to happen. This is a kind of delusion that we suffer from. We have called it ego. Suffering is the way the universe cures us of our ego and the false sense that we are the doers, and remind us in unmistakably clear language and events, you're not in charge of nothing. As the great master Jesus said, not even a leaf falls from a tree without God's permission. In Islam, it is understood there is only one God. And you must admit, you must bow down. Now, if you can't do that on the basis of your insight, then the universe crushes you. The universe itself puts your face to the floor. The universe itself sends you those experiences that help you realize that you need some help. Our suffering then creates a crack in our egos that allows God to come into our life. And that has to happen, you see, beloved. It has to happen in each and every one of our lives. Until that happens to you, you're not serious. Yes, you will talk much about God. You will talk much about spiritual things. You may even discuss them passionately. But the reality is that you don't feel the need for God. You see, it's just at the level of your head. It is all intellectual. You are intellectually related to God. God has nothing to do with your heart. In the relationship with God, it's a matter of heart. You must need God. And only out of that need will you cry for help. It is said, beloved, that that is what distinguishes a spiritual person from the conventional religious person. The spiritual person is a person who is crying for help. who has realized I can't make it, who has realized I'm not in control, that I need a higher power operating in my life, who has realized I don't know how to find happiness. I don't know how to find peace. I don't know how to bring love into my life. I don't know anything, and I need some help. Only such a soul will cry out to God and invite God into one's life. So you ask, why must I endure so much suffering? You must endure it because you have so much ego. And the more ego, the more suffering. Until that ego and that sense of you being in control is crushed. Why must you endure so much suffering? Because you haven't got the lesson. And the universe must keep teaching you over and over and over, repeatedly, the same lesson until you get it and bow down and let God that is splitting the atoms in your body, circulating your blood, firing the neurons that make our conversation even possible in the first place. That force that has brought you into its very existence, what makes you think it can't take care of you? Our suffering, beloved, is because we forget that there is God. It is very interesting, beloved. Part of any spiritual practice is this kind of radical remembrance of the presence of God. It has been called different names in different traditions, you see. The Hindus have called it Simran, the Muslims have called it Zikr, you see. But it's about the same thing. It is the profound remembrance and practicing of the presence of God. So much, much more can be said about it, beloved. But this suffering and the endurance of this suffering is necessary. It cuts through all of the crap. Because otherwise, you see, beloved, we remain deluded. Now, we've been thinking we're so smart. If you're so smart, why are you so miserable? If you're so smart, why are you unhappy? If you're so damn smart. If you know so much, why isn't there any love in your life? Without that suffering, we will remain deluded. Now, I don't need a guru. I don't need a rabbi. I know what I'm doing. If you know what you're doing, why are you so miserable? You see? Suffering is there, beloved, because you don't understand. Suffering is there because you are not happy enough. And you don't know how to get any happier. It is a profound matter. Much, much more can be said about it. Suffering is the mechanism underlying growth, because if you don't suffer, you don't grow. Suffering makes you change. Otherwise, you won't change. The ego never wants to change. Have you noticed? Never wants to change. Suffering, trauma, forces you to change or perish. It's like that. Just like that. Suffering is that fire that purifies you of all your illusions. All of them. Suffering wipes it out. Suffering straightens you out. Suffering clears your mind of all your nonsense. Suffering is God's way of bringing us back to Him. If God allows anything or any situation or any circumstance or combination of those things in this world to really be fulfilling, ultimately fulfilling, then who will want to seek God? Who will care about God? Who will care about realizing God? No one. The universe is structured in such a way that you will never experience any ultimate fulfillment. I don't care what you do. It is God's insurance that you come home to Him, because you won't find any rest nowhere else. Suffering is that force in the universe that turns you toward God. Otherwise, you won't turn toward God. I don't know anybody that has turned toward God that hasn't turned because of some suffering. They may say something else, but that's just cover up. You turn to God for the same reason you turn to that crack, to that drug, to that alcohol, to the sex, to the shopping. You turn to God because your life has collapsed. You can't make it work. And the more suffering, the more profound that suffering is, and the more you have learned from that suffering. If you learn from that suffering, then the more deep your devotion becomes. You follow? So to those whom God so favor, He sends them suffering. That's a sign God is trying to tell you something. It's God sending you an invitation to come home. He's reeling you in. He's getting your attention. He's setting you up to be loved. So our suffering is a great teacher, beloved. And you should try to find out what your suffering is teaching you. Because every one of us, suffering contains our lessons in life. When you are able to understand the spiritual purpose of suffering, you take a different kind of relationship to your suffering now. Because ordinarily, what do? When suffering arises in our life, we run like hell. Is that about right? We're trying to give ourselves some kind of relief from it immediately, aren't we? We're trying to avoid suffering. That's the wrong way to use suffering. If you're trying to avoid your suffering, you only have more suffering. Our suffering contains our lessons. And rather than avoiding them, fleeing, trying to escape, we must just do the opposite. We must enter deeply into that suffering and set it by our side and listen to it. What is the suffering trying to teach you? What lesson does it contain for you? Because it contains a lesson for you. It might be a lesson pertaining to becoming more tolerant. You may need to become a more tolerant person. You may need to become a more patient person. You may need to become a less idealistic person. You may need to become a more responsible person. You may need to become a more detached person. I mean, there's many different purposes that the suffering aims to teach us. But you must look and find out what it is you're suffering. It's there to teach you. That's where it's at. And then you get that lesson. And you move to a higher spiritual and human state. And I use the two words concomitantly. There's no such thing as moving to a higher spiritual state without simultaneously moving to a higher state of humanity. You follow me? Does that help a little bit, beloved? Something else to say about it?
Yeah.
Yes, beloved.
Stand up, y'all. Stand up.
I'm old, y'all can't hear.
I want to know when is the appropriate time to come to you when you have tried to read the book, you look at the lessons, you go through your notes, and you still are attached to a situation that you want to happen for yourself, and you can't. No matter what I've done, I haven't been able to figure out the lesson. And I know it's a lesson because it's happening to me, but when is it appropriate to approach you with that and not waste your time, but be, sincere about it? Because I'm suffering and I know there's a reason, but I cannot figure out the lesson to it.
Well, of course, you see, beloved, the first order of business is to visit the teachings that you have done. If it is not something that is pertaining to the inner world, then you have your fellow radazis, particularly your cooler members. Maybe they can help you resolve it. But if that fails, then you come. You see, that's the advantage of the relationship. You see my point? In Sufism, there's a saying that that's why God sends us a sheikh, for that express purpose in the first place. To serve you, to guide you through your suffering. We have a very wrong understanding about the function of these so-called spiritual teachers and gurus and masters. Their function is primarily to guide you through your suffering, to help you decipher your suffering, to protect you from your ego. That's their function. So when you have the ability to take advantage of that, you take advantage of it. But first, you must put in the effort. You follow me? First, you must exhaust yourself in trying to put in that effort to find out. What's the purpose of this suffering? Because you see certain patterns in your life, don't you? That is constantly recurring over and over again. It may be in the form of people, and you done went through 5 wives or 5 husbands. You understand? Clearly you got a problem. Clearly you're not learning something. You see? They all end on the same note. Yes, because you haven't got it. And you must decipher that. But there are these blind spots in all of us, you see, beloved? So that's why the Sangha is our advantage, our refuge, if you will. So you come, you see, when you have exhausted yourself and you know you really need help. Just the same answer with that brother. When you really know you need help. You don't come to debate, you come when you know you really need help. Come when you know you don't know. Come when you really are convicted that you don't know. If you come before then, you will be coming to debate. You will be coming to compare notes, to collaborate. There is no collaboration. Come when you don't know. Come when you know you don't know. Then that's when you come. And if you come, be prepared to act on what you get. Don't come out of no curiosity. Come, beloved, when the questions are a matter of life and death. When you gotta know and you're prepared to act on it. I try to see, beloved, it is just a waste of time and energy if we're going to come to our masters and ask questions and advice that we're not going to act on. That is the misuse of the guru. You see, beloved? So if we come and ask, then we should be prepared to act. And sometimes, you see, this is what is so mysterious about the relationship. Because sometimes, you see, beloved, we go to our guru, and our guru will give us an answer and advice that is way off the mark somewhere in our minds. You see, way out in right field somewhere. Don't make one bit of sense to us. You follow me? And because it does not fall into our concept of what is rational, then we don't act on it. So you must only come when you're prepared to act, whatever the answer is, whatever the instruction is. And you will only do that, beloved, when you know you really don't know. But as long as you think you know, then there will be no benefit to right. Mara, I used to always say you must come to the saints empty-handed. You follow me? In that sense. Your cup must be empty so that something can be poured into you. But as long as your head is full of your own so-called knowledge, then what can the guru do? You have not really looked at the consequences of your so-called knowledge. Your suffering is the result of your so-called knowledge. Your misery is the result of you acting on your so-called knowledge. You see? You must see the connection between the two. But as we were saying already, beloved, that there comes a time when we realize, I can't get out of my suffering. It becomes clear. I don't know how to bring my suffering to an end. I don't even understand why I'm suffering. And when that begins to occur in your case, you follow me? Or in anyone's case for that matter, then we take a very different relationship to the source of wisdom. So do everything you can. And then when you find out truly that you can't do anything, then that's the time to come. That's the exact time to come. now something can happen. There can be an exchange. Something else? Yes, brother?
Yes, Master. Is it possible to try to reduce the suffering of a loved one without that suffering becoming your own? Such as the mother, the child?
I think you know the answer to that. Well, you see, the question is, can you even reduce the suffering of another unless you have first reduced your own? Because we're in this world to help each other and so forth and so on. But then we have to really understand what is meant by relief from the suffering. We must really find out what is the mechanism that generates relief from suffering. If suffering is in our life because of our failure to get the lesson that life is trying to give us, if our suffering is related to our ignorance and lack of recognition of that lesson and acknowledging it and so forth and so on, then one of the ways that we will have to be capable of interacting with others is to give them that knowledge. If a loved one is suffering, they're suffering because of ignorance of this very thing. Isn't it? And so we will have to have some insight. And say, here's your lesson. Because the law is that until you get the lesson, the suffering is not going anywhere. That's why the suffering is there in the first place. Now, the conventional strategy for relieving suffering is to try to distract people. You follow me? To give them something, to anesthetize them, or distract them from it. But we've already discovered that that's not the way to handle suffering. You must really unpack the lesson that suffering had. So we help people by helping them unpack the lesson. But to do that, it follows that we must have first worked on our own suffering. So the question becomes, can you even help anybody in the first place? Now, the reality, beloved, is that most of us are not in any kind of position to relieve other people's suffering because we don't even know how to relieve our own. How can we help them learn the lesson when we ourselves can't decipher our own suffering and get the lesson? It's not going to happen. In fact, that other person in your life and you in their life and all of that itself has some kind of connection on it. Very often we find that we may be a part of the other person's suffering in the first place. Or they are part of our suffering. And so forth and so on. So beloved, it gets very, very complex. The only thing is that you should not try to add to their suffering. I don't know whether you can relieve it, because that's everybody's individual work. But I think most of us would agree that we shouldn't add any more to that person's suffering. They already are suffering enough. That's why my hygienist saints all say that, we have to try to be, as best we can, compassionate and so forth and so on. Just so to avoid adding any unnecessary suffering to a person that is already suffering. There's enough suffering in the world already. We don't have to add any more. But you cannot relieve another person's suffering ultimately. That's their work. Now remember, I'm talking about suffering as a spiritual phenomenon. I'm not talking about the fact you can't give somebody a loaf of bread and some food and some money here and some shelter there. But that's not the basis of their real suffering. You know what I mean? That's suffering on the periphery. You're helping them relieve their peripheral suffering, but that's not what they really suffer from. Suffering is a spiritual crisis going on in an individual. That's the source of suffering, you see. What they're really suffering is the inability to be happy. They don't know how to be happy. And they may be focusing in on giving me some money and help me pay my bills, and that'll relieve my suffering, but they're mistaken. Because what do they know about suffering and how to deal with it? They don't understand anything. And they think if I get my bills paid and you help me get my bills paid, then I won't suffer no more. That's not how it works. That's how it is not working up to that very point, isn't it? Give me and my family some food and you would have eliminated my suffering. No. You would have got some temporary relief, but suffering is going to come right back. Because what we suffer from cannot be relieved through these conventional means. That is the approach of the reformers, and the missionaries and so forth. That's the missionary mentality. Nothing wrong with it. Don't misunderstand me. You see? And if we have that opportunity to give someone some food or clothing or shelter or money and so forth and so on that will give them some relief at the surface of their being, that's fine. But don't be confused. That is not going to cure them of suffering. You have to be able to give them something far more significant than some money and some food and some shelter. You're going to have to be able to give them that knowledge that sets them free of the suffering. And that's what the saints and mystics come and do, you see? Because that's what they do for us, isn't it? Now, Maharaji's never sent me no check. And Maharaji's never bought any grocery for me at all. You understand? He has not ran me to the hospital. He has not sent me any Tylenol when I've had a headache. Then what have I gotten from the Master that pertains to my suffering? Knowledge. Knowledge. And that little bit of knowledge that I got has reduced more suffering than all the money I made. You see? I mean, when I was a young man, younger than you, beloved, I mean, I was making $70,000 a month. Didn't stop no suffering. Got married, had my 2.5 kids. Nice apartment, new Cadillac. Suffering kept rolling. In fact, you will very often wonder why people that make a lot of money sometimes still wind up killing themselves. It's because you have to understand the shock of realizing that I done made $1 billion and I'm still miserable. It's too much. And if I cannot overcome this misery with $1 billion, I might well kill myself. The only real antidote towards suffering, beloved, is that you must get the lesson. So the best thing that we can do for those in our lives who are suffering is to try to help if we can for them to get the lesson. To encourage them to respect their suffering and try to get the lesson. But then would you want to take their suffering?
It's innate. I mean, watching my mom suffer, I just feel it. I wish I didn't. I just do.
I think that's a natural human thing. We don't want to see the people in our life suffer, but Are they going to suffer? Absolutely. And part of life is accepting the suffering of our loved ones, isn't it? And sometimes that's part of the lesson, because you will try to do everything you can to eliminate the suffering of your loved one, only to realize you can't eliminate the suffering of your loved ones. And you recover that energy, time, and attention. It is like keeping our loved ones from dying. How will you do it? Is that possible? It's not possible at all. There's no way to protect them or ourselves from the human experience that includes sickness, death, suffering, and all other kinds of vicissitudes. Is that about right? We cannot utopianize our experience or anybody else's. Doesn't mean you become hard-hearted and all of that. And not sensitive and caring. I'm not talking about that. But you have to accept the reality. There is suffering. The Buddha said, and there is a cause of it. And there is a way to bring that cause of suffering to an end. And this is the way. But everybody has to do that for themselves. Everybody has to become enlightened for themselves. Everybody has to die for themselves. I mean, this is our own work. Something else to say about it? You all are so morbid today. We're talking about death. Anybody got any cheerful topic here like this? Yes, beloved. You into the morbid? Okay.
My question is about forgiveness.
I try.
How do I truly learn how to forgive not only myself, but others that have so-called wronged me? You know, how do I learn how to just really give myself permission to let go and to just, to not suffer the pain of what I did to myself and what I've allowed others to do to me? How do I just really love and just be centered in love and be love and just let go of what I have no power to change?
Now, which question should I begin with?
It's all the same for me. So it's two questions. How do I forgive myself and others? And then how do I learn how to truly love?
Well, they're interconnected, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Well, forgiveness, and of course, I don't know if you've been to the anger workshops. Then that's the first place to go. But Ataji does one of the workshops. You should try to meet those. In the anger Dharma, I've gone extensively into that. One of the first things about forgiveness to understand is that now we're talking about this conventional psychological and emotional kind of approach to personal well-being. Because when you say I, you're referring to your ego and the well-being of that entity. And I want you to clearly understand that's not what spirituality is about. But where you at is necessary, because you have to get psychologically and emotionally straight. Otherwise, you really can't transact that higher business. Well, certainly, psychologically speaking, you have to understand how forgiveness functions in your own psyche. You forgive others as an act in your own behalf. It has nothing to do with the other person. It has nothing to do with whether they were right or wrong. It doesn't mean that you have condoned what they've done or anything of that nature. You forgive that person because the anger and the resentment hurts you. And you forgive them as an act of rebellion and refusal to carry this degree of resentment and pain around in your life. You forgive that person rather than torture yourself like that. you see? So forgiveness is an act in your own behalf. Has nothing to do with the other person. What they did very likely was very, very wrong. You do not make them a target of your revenge. So these are a few things. You don't make them a target of revenge. Because when you make that person a target of your revenge, all that you're doing is reinforcing your own aggression and violent behavior. So you don't make the other person that has wronged you a target of your revenge. You see? You forgive them, because by forgiving them, you break down that tendency in yourself to be violent and aggressive. Are you with me? And you are moving yourself to a higher plateau of development. Another thing you can do, you see, beloved, when somebody has really hurt you, because it's what has caused the anger and the impulse for revenge in the first place. In that moment, you see, forgiveness enables you to connect to your heart and the wisdom associated with that. By connecting to the wisdom of your heart, you can forgive that person on the basis of understanding. That's just a human being. They got imperfections, shortcomings, and faults just like me. Or they may be so spiritually dead and unconscious that they don't even have a clue as to how much they hurt me. You follow me? They don't have no understanding. You see? And seeing them from the position of your heart wisdom, you can forgive them and let that go. And there's yet another level you can work with it. I mean, there's many levels. I'm just giving you a few of them so that you can come up with an effective strategy now to take care of all this business and forgive all those that you must forgive. Because on the path, you must forgive all of those that have sinned against you before you can take this journey. You got to do that. You got to do that. You see? Because that will keep you so distracted from the spiritual work. It'll keep you gravitating toward your ego. So you got to handle this work. That's why I say you got to get straight. Another thing, beloved, when you forgive a person, what you are doing is you're getting a lesson from that event itself. Because that person in your life is in your life. They're also a part of your lesson plan. Are you with me? That's why they're in your life in the first place. Then you can look at the incident and see, what did this teach me? Yes, it has hurt you. Yes, I understand that. But what did it teach you? What was the lesson there for you? When you look upon the incident as a lesson, it changes your emotional relationship to it. You see? You're not reacting personally anymore to it. You're reacting intelligently to it now. And you're trying to decipher what lesson was life sending me through this relationship with this person. And you get that lesson. You see? Forgiveness creates the context where you can get the lesson without any kind of obstacle created by your emotions. You're able to respond intelligently. when you really peel deep into it, beloved, you can really forgive a person. Much in the same way if it was a dream. Now, last night, if you dreamed that Varataji, you see, broke into your house, stole your money, raped you, killed your best friend, it's all of that. And then you wake up and you realize it was a dream. Will you be angry at this Varataji that is sitting here? No. Because you have realized the essencelessness of the event. Are you understanding me? You see, beloved, the masters have said that much of what has occurred in your waking state is not much different from what occurs in a dream. Like things went on you see in your life years ago, it feels like a dream, like it didn't even happen. There is a kind of essencelessness about this whole experience we're having in the waking state. Where it's really no big deal. And when you can see that this is not really a big deal, this doesn't have much essence. It's made out of the same stuff as dreams. You can then let it go and forgive on the basis of the dreamlike nature of the event, the person, and they're wronging you. Yes, they have wronged you, but it was like a dream event and experience. 40 years from now, it won't even be real. It has no essence, and you can let it go. And on that same basis, you see, you can forgive yourself. Because, again, what is the fundamental grievance you have with yourself? Your grievance with yourself is that you have failed to act on good judgment. Because you're angry at yourself because at some level you know you are the cause of your own suffering. You picked the bastard to be in your life. And you use some bad judgment. And you're angry at yourself about that. And you can't forgive yourself for having been so stupid. But when you realize, you see, beloved, that this self that you've been thinking you have, you are, is unreal. When you own the reality of your imperfection, shortcoming, and faults, that you don't have no perfect judgment, and that you are holding yourself to a standard that you were doomed to fail to live up to in the first place. And you can forgive yourself for just being a human being. Yes, you made a mistake. Yes. All right. But there's not much essence in it. You follow me? It too is essenceless. Just like if you, in your dream, you dreamed that you went to Varataji's house and killed him, right? And stole all his money. And upon awakening, you don't get on the phone and say, Varataji, I'm so sorry last night what I did. You understand? It was a dream. Essencelessness. No big deal. And you let yourself off the hook. Now, much more can be said about it. But we have created a context for that in the form of these anger management workshops. And Varataji has been very, very good to accommodate those who have come, you see, on a Saturday morning and would like to work through this part of the preparation for the path, because we have to work through it, you see. So, By staying connected to our hearts, we can forgive others. There's an act in our own self-interest. You forgive others to make you feel better. It doesn't mean that what they did to you wasn't wrong. It's not legitimatizing what they did to you. But it is refusing to carry the suffering around with you anymore. Does that help a little bit, beloved? Yes, beloved?
Stand, please.
You may have answered part of this question earlier, but I would like to know, what does the guru or spiritual master look for before accepting an initiate? Also, the reverse.
Yes.
What is the initiate?
Oh, I can talk a lot about that. I'm an expert on that part.
Okay, and the initiate, what should I look for?
Yes, yes. Well, you see, beloved, your question is very timely in the sense that I have had this discussion with quite a few people recently pertaining to this very matter. When you are searching for a guru, what are you looking for? You're looking for someone that can help you overcome a state of being that is no longer acceptable. When one is a true seeker, and you have to understand, what we look for in the guru is based on what quality of seeker we are. You have to understand, beloved, that there are different qualities of seekers. Just like there's different levels of gurus, there's different levels of seekers. And what you tend to look for in a guru is based fundamentally on where you are at as a seeker. What you are seeking. Based on your concept. Of what truth is. Now let's say if I'm seeking information, then I would look for a guru that has a lot of information, because that's what I'm seeking. I would seek that in the guru, right? And if the guru don't have a lot of information, then that ain't a real guru for me, because what I'm seeking information. Let's see if I'm seeking to morality in the conventional sense. You follow me? Then that's what I'm going to look for in a guru. Right? I want to be a moral, ethical person. I love the Bible. You follow me? I want to fulfill all of that. That's my concept of what it means to be spiritual. Like the Pharisees. In Jesus' time, they had a very rigid concept of what it means to be spiritual. And of course, Jesus definitely did not and was not consistent with the Pharisees' concept Because to be holy means you have to do all these rituals, blah, blah, blah. But if that's what I'm seeking, that's what I'll look for in the guru. And if that's what I'm seeking, whatever you're seeking, that's what you must make sure is in the guru. Are you following me? So the onus is on the seeker here. That's what you're looking for. You should look for the presence of that which you are looking for, what you are seeking. But you should understand that's what you are seeking. If I'm looking for transformation, then that's what I want to see. That's what I'm looking for in the Guru. I don't give a damn about the rest of the stuff. He could be an idiot. You understand? I am looking for transformation. The tradition, you see, beloved, is full of beautiful stories about it, isn't it? There's the story of King Janaka and Astavaka. Now, Astavaka was a hunchback, black skin like ours, leathery. You see? Like a leopard. You know, you seen a leopard? Ugly, horrible to the sight. And of course, I won't tell the story. I mean, it's been told for centuries. But King Janaka was a king, but he was a seeker, an extraordinary seeker. And so he had instructed his ministers to get in contact with all of the gurus in his kingdom and bring them to court, because he was looking for a guru for him, based on what he was in search of. And so all these gurus and wise people were brought in, you know, the robes and the, you know, all of this. And Janaka would bring each one in and listen to him. There was the scholar guru, there was the religious guru, and there was the so forth and so on. Janaka wasn't looking for that. Janaka was looking for something else. Janaka was looking for transformation, becoming a whole new kind of being. And none of these gurus was offering what he was looking for. And he asked his ministers, have you brought everybody? Is there anybody else left? They said, oh, this one guy, Astavaka, but you don't want to deal with him because, you know. King said, bring Astavaka. And they said, King, you don't understand. He ain't coming. He don't care about none of this. He ain't trying to be a conventional guru and follow all the decorum. It's Astavaka. But somehow or another, you see, through diplomacy and forth and so on, Janaka was able to convince the great Astavaka to come to court. And when Astavaka entered the court, all the other gurus looked at him with scorn. What kind of guru is he? Nasty, he's sloppy, clothes all hanging all off of him. You know what I mean? And where is his rosary? He's supposed to have a rosary with 108 beads on it. How can he be a guru without a rosary? How dare you? You know? You don't act like a guru. Don't look like a guru. See? But Janaka instantly recognized, because that's what Janaka was looking for. Was a man like Astavaka, who had completely transcended conventions, not limited by any of these concepts at all. completely beyond that. Totally, completely free from the relentless pursuit of the maintenance of his image as a guru. Ashtavaka was not into maintaining his image as guru at all. He was free. And Janaka, that's what he was looking for, freedom. From just that. He was a king, for God's sake. And he's tired of all of that. Protocol, blah, blah, blah. And so this became his guru, you see. And the story goes on to tell the price that King Janaka was to pay. The same is the case with Sukhdev, the same is the case with Kabir, the same is the case when you can read the biographies of all of these great saints and seekers yourself. So what we look for in the guru, beloved, what you should look for in the guru, will only be a reflection of what you're looking for in the first place. So the real question is, what you looking for? That's the real question. What you looking for? You got to know what you're looking for. Otherwise, you get the wrong guru, and then you become a victim of one of the pitfalls on the spiritual path, which I have called this search, this endless search for the perfect teacher. Have you seen them? These are people who are going from one teacher to the next teacher, to the next teacher, to the next teacher, to the next teacher. They're all over the place. Running from guru to guru, place to place. What are they searching for? See, that seeker is searching for something. Yes, he's searching for a teacher. Yes, but a very specific kind of teacher. What kind of teacher is a person looking for that keeps them endlessly involved in this search? Here and there. Well, it's been my observation, beloved, that that kind of seeker is looking for a teacher that is not going to put any work on them, that is not going to make any kind of spiritual demands on them. They're looking for a teacher that is simply going to accommodate their own ego concept of what spirituality is all about. That's the kind of teacher they're looking for. And what happens is that they're having a hard time finding one. That's why they keep going all over the place. Because if you are a spiritual teacher at any level, you're going to put some demands on people. And what that seeker is looking for is a way to avoid personal practice. Real sadhana. They don't want to do the work. You understand? They want to come and talk about the work. They want to come and pass off all of that. But they don't want to do the work. So you have to really know what it is that you're seeking. Are you seeking some kind of guru that is going to let you off the hook, where you don't have to do any work, that'll make no demands of you, where you can just sit around and talk endlessly about spiritual matters and all of that? Is that what you're looking for? Know what you're looking for. Because you'll get what you're looking for. It's that simple. You get the guru that is consistent with what you're looking for. And if you don't have that guru, you will automatically leave. You will find any excuse to leave. Because that's not what you were looking for in the first place. You see? And you will always, that's the law of the universe, you will always wind up just where you need to be, based on what you see. Now you ask, what does the guru look for in the disciple? One of the things you see that the guru looks for is bara, desire to be free. And either you got that or you don't have it. Guru's not looking for your perfection. Guru's not looking for you to be moral, ethical, spotless, stainless. That's what you people look for. That's not what the Guru's look for. The guru want to look and see, do you have a heart? Because this takes heart. I'm only speaking now about the gurus I'm familiar with. Now there's other gurus that are not looking for that, obviously. You follow me? They're not looking for anything. They're looking to see if you got some money. How much money you got if you want to join up, because you see they're looking for different things. What kind of degree you got? Because I want to, be known as having a very academic and professional group of people associated. So up from other things. You see my point? Or how righteous you can act. Because there's some guru that, they into self-righteousness as an alternative to enlightenment. You see? So it depends. But the gurus I'm talking about, they're looking for heart. Do you have the heart of a disciple? Fix the rest of it. Do you have a heart? Do you have that fidelity? Do you have discernment? Because you're going to need discernment if you're going to work with a real guru in this tradition. Because they will test you constantly. There was one guru, like you would come to him, you said, what do you look for? And the way he would test for the presence of heart is that all those candidates for initiation he would take with him into town. Then he would go into a whole house and spend the night. And the next day he'll come out and say, okay, who wants to be my disciple? One. Because he wasn't looking for, you know what I mean? He wasn't looking for a perfect master, and the master ain't looking for a perfect disciple. They belong with each other. Different. But you see the difference, beloved? Testing for heart, testing for fidelity, because you're going to need some fidelity. Testing you for it. Where's your fidelity? Where's your fidelity? Do you have any loyalty? Let me see it. You see? Do you have any fearlessness? Because I'm looking for disciples that are fearless. I don't want no problems. Those gurus looking for something very different than your conventional spiritual teachers and preachers and wannabe gurus. Very different. Heart. Can you be committed? Discernment, because you will need some discernment. You need some intelligence. You need to discern. You need to be able to, as the Hindus traditions say, separate milk from water. Even when the two have become mixed, I must have some discernment. But that fundamental quality is what you look for in a mate, in any relationship. Because the guru-disciple relationship is a relationship, isn't it? Sure it is. It's a real relationship. And it takes what any real relationship takes. It takes commitment. If I stand before my wife and I say, until death do us part, that's what I mean. When I say for better or worse, that's what I mean. And the marriage will test me for that. Will it not? Same with a guru. When a guru and a disciple get married, that's a marriage. A mutual acceptance. Better or worse. Thick or thin. And either you got fidelity or you ain't got fidelity. It's really that simple. Ain't nothing mysterious about it. That's what the guru is looking for. Because we can make it if you got fidelity. Trust. And remember, trust is not created by the guru. Trust is created by the disciple. Doubt is not created by the guru. Doubt is in the mind of the disciple. And the guru is looking for a disciple that ain't got no doubt. Who has trust And wouldn't you look for that in a real relationship? The man that you will lay beside in bed and spend your whole life, wouldn't you want him to trust you? You wouldn't want him laying there with one eye open all the time. What kind of relationship? That's what the Guru's looking for. Because the Guru can't work with you if you don't trust. Well, how can he Guru? You can't be Guru. You cannot be Guru'd in a state of doubt. So you must be capable of that. That's what it takes. So these are the essential things. The Guru is looking for that kind of quality. In a disciple. And as a disciple, I'm looking for that kind of Guru that fulfills what I'm looking for. It's really that simple. You know, my own personal case, see, I wasn't looking for any, really, I didn't even know I was looking for a Guru for a long time. I knew I was trying to fulfill something in my life, but I didn't know you'd call that Guru. I thought that was a friend. You know, I had sought for that in my best friend. I had sought for it in wives. You know what I mean? I didn't know what it was. You know, I'm from London. How could I know? I'm not from India. I'm not no Hindu. I don't know anything about that being. But I was looking for something that matched with me. And so that's how it came about. I didn't care that Maharaji was a Hindu, looked white and all that. I didn't care about none of that. Even though I'm living in Londale in the age of nationalism, you know what I mean? Brotherhood. But I didn't matter. But that's what I was looking for. I was looking for that way by which I could become spiritually free. I didn't have a lot of hang-ups about it. You know. But everybody's search is different, you see. Now, much, much more can be said about it today. I haven't really addressed a lot of it because it's in books. So, you can read any book. There's the book of Ra back there, and that whole Guru-disciple relationship is explored, you see, on both sides of that equation. I defer you to it. But I've simply tried to address the core, the psychological core of the search, and the psychological core of the relationship between the Guru and the disciple. But it is an extraordinary loyalty that occurs when you find the right Guru. A kind of loyalty and fidelity that just simply transcends. Full of great discernment, great discrimination. I'm reminded of an incident from the Sikh tradition, a story, I think it was Guru Gobind Singh, the last and 10th of the Sikh Gurus, before that line coming down from Guru Nanak come to an end. And Guru Gobind Singh knew that there would not be any more Gurus, that he was the last in that particular lineage. And somehow or another he wanted to ensure, at least for as long as possible, the well-being of the community of Sikhs. So he decided to, in his own mind, create what he called a kasa. a inner community of Sikhs that were together, collectively, able to generate the force of the Guru. And he had come upon a brilliant scheme to find these men and women within his Sangha. The story goes that he assembled all of the Sikhs before him and told them about his ideal of starting a Khalsa and so forth and so on, and he wanted to know who were prepared to enter into it as he stood with his sword in his hand. And most of you know the story, so I will corrupt it and tell it quickly because time is dragging on here. He had a goat inside of his tent. And he said, who would like to be in my casa? Because casa's going to be running stuff. You know what I mean? I'm the last of the bodily gurus in this lineage, and going to have this casa, and this casa is going to have all the powers, because they destroyed all of the mahants. We're no more mahants. Going to empower the casa. Who would like to be in it? So one guy, even though he saw the blood, you know what I mean, on the sword, because he went in there and, killed the goat and blood is dripping. Came back out. Who else? Another guy. Now, he wasn't killing them inside. He just bring them inside and hit the goat and, who else? Somebody else was ready. I mean, it went on like that. It took weeks and months. Soon there was no, but he managed to get 5 people. Out of all that time. Because every time somebody would come up and volunteer, and he'd go in that tent, and you hear that sword hit, whoo, and come out with more blood. I need 3 more. But this become the casa. His 5 beloveds. And so when you see the Sikh with the turban and the beard and the sword and all of the 5 Ks, those are the signs of the casa. You see? Prepared to die for Nanak. You see? Very different from Nanak. So that's what the Guru looks for. What Guru Gobind Singh looked for, that's what every Guru looks for. The question is, how many disciples are looking to give their head up? And even more importantly, are you that kind of disciple, seeker, who's looking to give your head up? Or are you looking to be consoled? Anything else to say about it? Yes, beloved.
Stand, please.
I want to know, is there a concept of the afterlife that you have when you teach? If so, what is it?
I'm sorry, beloved, say it again.
I want to know if there's a concept of the afterlife that you
The afterlife?
if you believe in that concept.
Gotcha. Well, there's a lot that has been said about it in the literature of these teachers. So I guess there is something about what happens to us after death of the body. And beloved, I know that's in the matter of life and death back there. I don't know if Buddha Das have shared it with you, beloved, had you? All right, so I know you know a little bit about it.
I just wanted to hear exactly what
I see. You are a friend of Buddha Das. But I filled the book with what little I know about it and was willing to say about it. So I don't know what I could add to it that I haven't already said. Other than the fact that your suffering don't end upon the dropping of this physical body. One of the greatest misconception about the afterlife experience held by most of us is that suffering is only related to this dimension of being, i.e., this human and wakeful condition that we're in. And that's certainly not the case. That suffering persists even after death. In fact, the suffering after death is far more intense than this suffering. That death does not let you off the hook. You still got to grow spiritually. The universe demands our spiritual growth. And you either can do it here in this body, or you'll do it outside of the body in the afterlife, but you're going to have to deal with this whole matter of recovering your original spiritual condition. The universe is purposed toward that. The value of the human birth, beloved, is that in this human birth and in this human body, we have an opportunity to be involved in this process in a way that is superior and far better than if we wait for the occasion of the loss of this body. When you are struggling in the afterlife, there's simply no way to anesthetize yourself. See, in this body, you can go out and watch TV, get drunk, go shopping. I mean, you got a moment here or there of relief. There, no relief. The suffering is continuous. It's like a fire. That's where we get the concept of hell from. It's like fire. And that metaphor has existed historically across tradition because that's very close to the experience. You are literally burnt up as ego. The suffering is at least 7 times greater. Just multiply the suffering you have in now, the suffering you got because you ain't got no money, multiply that 7-fold. Suffering because you can't find the right mate, multiply it 7-fold. That's what's happening there. Yes, beloved?
I was just thinking, when the number 7 times greater, it seems so specific, something so abstract, something so
Yes.
you can't relate to that really.
Yes.
What would you say to a person who may want to believe but can't believe because it's so far away?
Oh, you don't have to. Just wait. You don't have to. That's the beauty of it. See? Beloved, that's the beauty of death. Nobody has an option. And it's a kind of thing, it doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. It's like gravity. Gravity does not cease to function because you don't believe in it or don't understand it. Gravity is independent of your belief system. Your belief systems are confined to your ego. It is limited to the realm of your little tiny knowledge, which is not much, right? So law never depends on your consensus. It is the law, and it's simply wrong. So not to worry at all. Death will occur to you in your case. You will die. About that, have no doubt. And then you will have your own experience. You follow me? You have some kind of sense of it, the thought of death, because when you even think about the time of your non-existence, you see how that freaked you out? You know? So all of us will have a chance, you see, beloved. All of us. Because we all gonna die. That's the only problem you got. You really don't have any other problem. So let me put it like this. All other problems are derived from that fundamental problem. The problem is this sense of self, the identity, that which you feel you are, the person that you feel you are, all of that is coming to an end. That is going to wind up in the dirt. And your body will become food for worms. Now, that's how it is. All that you are clinging to and calling self that you don't want to, you see? Sacrifice will be sacrificed. And the only question is, how will you handle death? That's the real issue. How are you going to handle it? You can't even handle life. How are you going to handle death? Yes, sister.
I want to know, you were saying about, so in between life and death, we have, well, life now and then we have death. How do we prepare ourselves for that so that we won't suffer? Or how do we get ourselves out of ourselves? Because it seems like you're saying, get yourself out of yourself so that you can, it's like a total submission of who you think you are.
Oh, you bright. you answered and asked the question yourself. But I tell you what, because your question is so large and we can't really do justice to it, again, I'm going to defer you back to the literature table. There may be a book back there, but you're right on the right trail here. The master says that you should die before your death. You should die while living, in the sense that psychologically you must accept the reality of your death. Now that's one of the tasks of life. One of the tasks of life that few people can really fulfill. It is the task that we have called mortality, and accepting the fact that the you that you think you are. You see, you have a concept of self that you have created, like everybody else. It is an image that you have created, a concept that you have created of yourself, based on your identification with your body and the experiences and connection that it has in the world, and your own interior mind, you see. Both of which is transient. Now that whole package is going to come to an end, obviously. Right? Now how to live with that understanding. Now that's what most people don't know how to do. They don't know how to live knowing clearly that they're going to die. They don't know how to do that. They cannot accept death. And because they cannot accept their death, they cannot really live free. Because what is our life fundamentally, other than trying to avoid dying? You are relentlessly and constantly in the pursuit of maintaining your personal comfort and existence and well-being. And that is going to end. The question becomes how to be in this world and not of it. You see? Right. There you go. You see, how to live free from this fear of death. Because everything that you are doing driven out of your fear of death. Please make a note of that. If you want me to reduce your psychology or the psychology of human behavior to its most fundamental source, the source of it is fear. Care what you're doing. I don't care what you're doing. All your good deeds, all your Reformation acts, you're coming to the path. Everything that you are doing is rooted in and driven out of your fear of death. Now, if you can understand that, you have a profound grasp of psychology and the whole culture of psychiatry at your fingertips. Now, all that we all have done is invented a lifestyle that anesthetize and relieve us of the anxiety associated with that foreknowledge. We have even created the concept of God in the sky with the long white beard to give us some relief from the anxiety associated with that foreknowledge. Are you following me, beloved? That's right. The church, the conventional religion, that's its whole function, isn't it? It's to relieve you of that anxiety. But the reality is that you're still going to die. And you're afraid. And that you that is afraid is what I call the ego. And real life requires you transcending that fear, i.e. transcending that ego-based fear. Because your fear is ego-based. You see, the tiger is not afraid to die. Trees, they're not afraid to die. There's no ego. You know what I mean? It says not that you're afraid of dying right now. You aren't. You're afraid that tomorrow you're going to die. Your fear of death is in time, future. But it's going to happen. So the question, beloved, becomes, how do I transcend this fear, this deep and inherent fear of ego death, which is this body-mind combination? How do I deal with that? How you stop living on the basis of fear? Life lived on the basis of fear. That's not real life, is it? You can't live. You can't love. You're scared. And that's all you're doing. Yes, Nabaji?
Okay, does that mean that the I that we know ourselves to be, that in reality is something other than what it appears to be?
Absolutely. The self that we are identified with is not the self that is spiritual. The self, what we call self, beloved, is a psychological construct. That which is the self is spirit. We have all constructed a false sense of self. When you say I, what are you referring to? Have you thought about it? What is your I referring to? First is your body. This thing is the first basis of that I, and then what's going on in it, the memories and your likes, your dislikes, and so forth and so on, right? That's what we call I. But that is not the I that the saints and mystics are talking about. Now you see, this is where it starts getting tricky. Because you really got to find out who you are. What you are. You must let go of this false sense of self so that who you really are may emerge. You must give up the false sense of self so that that who and what you are can emerge.
How do you do that?
That's called sadhana. That's what the spiritual path is all about, is that very process. Because that's what you must wake up from. You see, for instance, when you go into a deep, dreamless sleep, what has been called susuti in the East, well, you're not dreaming, right? Are you having any sense of this I that you identify with now? No. Don't patronize me. Are you having any experience of it?
No, sir.
Do you cease to exist?
No, sir.
Then what is it that exists when you're having no experience of your ego? Tatwamatsi, da, that. And your identity must move from here to that. That's the process. That never dies because it was never born. You see the difference? So there is this psychological sense of self based on identification with the body and the mental activity, and then there is a self that exists. Being. Do you understand the difference between your being and your I? I hate to get into these semantics, but do you sense what I'm saying? There's a vast distinction between being, your being, and your I. Isn't it? And the path is about the recovery of your being as the basis of identity. That is what self-realization is about. ego is an obstacle and a process in consciousness that obscures the experience of self. It blocks the experience of self. It's just a thing you invented. It's just a concept. It's an image. It's some shit you made up in high school somewhere about yourself. You understand? And then you live your life relentlessly trying to maintain this false image of yourself. It ain't real. It has no objective existence. Nobody even sees your so-called self-image that you have created of yourself. It is purely a subjective phenomenon. Period. It is Maya. It is illusion. It is made of the same stuff that dreams and fantasies are made out of. Yet you live your whole life trying to perpetuate and maintain the survival of this image that you have created of yourself, which is not you at all. It's not real. It has no substance. It's not genuine. It won't even survive deep sleep. How is it going to survive death? Come on here. You see? And yet, as long as you are caught up in trying to maintain that with your every waking moment and your every breath, then where will there be any energy for the real thing? Where will there be any time for the real work? And so you must transcend this false notion of yourself and thus liberate the time, energy, and attention that you are spending trying to maintain that which is headed for the garbage heap. This thing is headed for the garbage heap. That's all a graveyard is. It is the garbage pile where they throw dead and useless bodies. That's where it's going. You want to know your destiny? It's there, on the garbage heap. That's where your destiny is. Because this is who you think you are. That's where you're going. It is a profound matter here. And the mystics have said that in our souls, our spirits have become so imprisoned in this thing. We become so enslaved by this false image and ego and so forth and so on. I don't know whether they're telling the truth, but this is what they say. That when they throw you in the grave, you have become so trapped in the body as a soul that you can't even get out. They say how your soul leaves the body? Yeah, that's for practitioners. Non-practitioners, so don't get out the body. That's it for you. That's where you rest for all eternity. Because you were trapped totally in your body-mind. Totally trapped in your body-mind. Totally dominated by your body, mind, and senses. Totally under the control and domination of your false image of yourself. Your soul, as soul, you are trapped. And even when they throw the dirt on you, you ain't getting it. It is a profound matter, beloved. The path is for those who want to be free.
So we have to go on this universal plane where we are now.
That's right.
Because we don't become stagnated. We keep going through the same change.
Same thing. Same thing. Ain't you sick of it? Millions of lives you've been looking for a husband or looking for a wife, working a job trying to avoid poverty. I mean, ain't you sick of this? Ain't you sick of it? Millions of lives you've been reading books, not going nowhere. I mean, ain't you sick of it? Ain't you sick of this? The path is for those who are sick of it. They say, I'm sick of this samsara. I'm sick of this Bhagwan, this wheel, this constant endless. That's why you get so easily bored. Because you done did this stuff so much. You see how quickly you're bored in life? Because you done did it a million times. How many times can you be married and still be excited? Let me take that question. Some of you rascals. How many times can you have sex? You're going to get bored with sex eventually. You're going to get bored with reading books. That's why you get bored. You don't read all the damn books. It's boring. Beloved, the thing is, let's get out of here. And the path is about that kind of freedom. That's what we call spiritual freedom. That's what spiritual freedom means. It's to become free from the captivity of the body-mind complex and your identification with it. That's what it's about. Earlier we were talking about this very matter. Do you want to be free? See, that's the only issue. Yes or no? Not whether you want to be comfortably enslaved. Like our ancestors, and as I was saying earlier today, before you all arrived to a smaller group, that our ancestors, there were some of our ancestors, you see, beloved, that wanted to be free. They really wanted to be free. Not safe, not comfortable on the plantation. They want to be free. And they were willing to do whatever that freedom required of them. The path is no different, beloved. The question is, do you want to be spiritually free of the domination of your mind and your senses, of your anger, your lust, your greed, your attachment, your vanity? Do you want to be free of all of that? Do you want to live a life free of that fear? And it either is yes or no. It's really clear. You don't have to debate it. You don't have to put it up for vote. This is not something you check with your neighbors about. All right, I think enough for today. We'll have Prashad. So you should come very, very quietly.
You want me to hold this? What you want to do?
Come quickly, quickly.
You want to stay?
Come.